Okay, hi everyone. Welcome to the DataCan first meetup. So today we are really honored to have four people, like distinguished speakers from Vancouver, Canada, to come and join us in the Understand Data Analyst job panel discussion. Before we go into the discussion, it's just a little bit brief introduction about the organization. So DataCan, we originally a group of volunteer organizing Vancouver Women in Data Science Conference. And so as we start organizing conference, we see that there's a need for communities in Vancouver, and even like bigger than Vancouver is like also these areas for the people who interested in the data area in this field. And so we want to extend our organization to embrace the diversity that we have in the data field. And so that's why we created this organization named DataCan for more inclusive. And so for this organization, one of the first series that we want to create is called Insider Series, which is this is one of the meetup that is part of the Insider Series, where we can invite people with the same job title from different backgrounds, different type of company, different industry, to come and share a little bit about the path, how they get into the current role, or about the day-to-day tasks. And then so they can help you to answer some of your question about the job in any or some of the aspect of it. So with that, I will welcome our speaker today. Maybe just like having some clap in the chat, just like to welcome our speaker today. Just like to react with the clap, you know, I think there's a clapping, something like that. Yeah, something like that. Yeah. And so I will pass the pass it to first maybe Anton. You can like introduce a bit about yourself and also a little bit about your background, how you get into your current position.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you. Hi everyone. My name is Anton. Nice to meet you all. I'm happy to be here. Thanks for having me here today. And yeah, about my background, I'm currently with Microsoft. But before that, I used to be with a small startup. It was travel tech startup based here in Vancouver. And for a long time before we kind of scaled and hired more people, I used to be a single person data team, meaning I was both data engineer and data analyst. Of course, back then I didn't know that was a thing, and that this is how it called what I was doing. Yeah. What else? I'm a self-taught. I usually joke that I have YouTube degree in data field. And yeah, it all started with me being digital marketing. Yeah, I started as a digital marketer. What I did is essentially I was buying clicks on Google, Facebook, Microsoft Bing, and it all started with me staring at our GA account, Google Analytics account, and wishing I had more data to analyze our marketing performance. And yeah, that's how my journey started, and now here I am. Standing here. Yeah, that was fun journey. I don't claim to be an expert in this field. I'm here to showcase that if I did it, you can do it too, especially for those who is just starting out or thinking about embracing data science industry. And maybe to showcase that YouTube degree is a real thing, and I'm a living example of it. Yeah, happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much. So let's pass it to Ha. Do you want to introduce a bit about yourself?
We're following alphabetical order.
Yes.
So hi everyone. My name is Ha, and I'm currently working at Shopify as a data scientist for their people analytics team. So our team is basically supporting Shopify and the talent team to make better decisions in hiring and employee experience. Yeah, it's super interesting because whatever I do, I feed that back into the service that will help me. So before I joined Shopify, I was a senior data scientist at Data Analyst actually at Unbounce, and I helped the whole Unbounce team getting insights from their customers and help them to improve their product. Yeah, and talking about my background, I graduated from Master of Data Science at UBC in 2018. But before that, I was not in any computer science or stats background. I was in marketing and economics, actually. So it was quite a change. Yeah, so here we are talking about data analyst role, which I feel like a lot of people are like interested in changing career as well.
We see a pattern here, hey?
Yeah. So
Okay.
I guess the next one is Shiner.
Shiner, yeah. I guess I will have to break that pattern, unfortunately. But yeah, so hi everyone. My name is Shiner, and I am currently a senior data analyst at NuData Security, a Mastercard company. And unlike Ha and Anton, I graduated with a Bachelor of Science degree from University of British Columbia back in 2018 with a combined major in statistics and economics. So I have a little bit, like just a little bit like computer science and like mathematics experience. And during my undergrad, I was enrolled in the science co-op program, which allowed me to have a number of internships where data formed the core of my responsibilities. I worked at the BC Children's Hospital as a research assistant for the Department of Orthopedic Surgery. And then I worked at Statistics Canada as an assistant survey methodologist. And then I interned as a data engineer at a local tech startup called TSO Logic. And then I was later a trainee analyst in the risk surveillance and analytics department for the Financial Services Authority in BC. Following my graduation, I worked at a real estate company called Mancor based in New Westminster for 2 years as a GIS and data analyst. And now I am at NuData Security. Yeah, so that's a little bit about myself. I will pass it over to Yasmin.
Hi, my name is Yasmin. I am a data analyst at Phoenix Labs. I have been at Phoenix Labs for the past year and 9 months now, and this is my first role actually as a data analyst. Before that, I had a different journey as well. I see bringing the pattern back of different journey that brings you to data analytics. Yeah, so currently I am working on an action RPG game called Dauntless. Phoenix Labs is a game development studio based in Vancouver and has also locations in Montreal and LA and SF. So yeah, in terms of my journey into data analytics, I can start from the beginning from my undergraduate degree. So I had an undergraduate degree in computer engineering, and when I graduated, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. All I wanted to do was build games and robots. So nothing in particular that I wanted to, you know, like a particular area that I wanted to work on. So that's what I ended up doing, actually. I stayed in the university and I worked as a research assistant in the computer science department, working on a project related to robotic surgery simulation technologies. So that involved me programming the simulation a little bit and then coming up with a prototype and then testing it and then collecting data on it and publishing a paper with it. With the results. So that was fun. So I decided to go and do my master's degree in computer engineering. So that's what I did. I applied for a computer engineering master's at UBC with a specialization in human-computer interaction. And for those who are unfamiliar with human-computer interaction, it's a very exciting field that basically looks into interaction design and usability research. That is like the direct application for it in the industry. So I found that very interesting, and I was still interested in, you know, the types of technologies that it looks into in terms of robotics and also video games. So that's so yeah. So I finished my graduate degree in human-computer interaction, and after I graduated, I wasn't quite sure whether I wanted to continue in the academic path or to join the industry. So I took about like 6 months working again as a research assistant, again in the robotic surgery simulation field, just so I would try to figure out what I really want to do next. And then after 6 months, I realized, well, 3 important things. The first one is that I don't want to do a PhD right now. Maybe in the future, who knows? But right now, I really want to go into the industry. I would really like to experience something that is more collaborative, more fast-paced, more structured than academia. So that's like my first conclusion. The other one is that I still really want to work in video games. I haven't tried that yet. So I try to look into opportunities in that field. And the third one is that I really like delivering insights. I really like understanding how people use different technologies and what insights we can get out of it, whether it's qualitative or quantitative data. How can we use that to improve the product better, and how can we use that to improve the businesses better? Yeah, so at that time, I quit my job as a research assistant, and I was applying for jobs in mostly in user research in the games industry. At that point, I didn't really have a very good understanding of what types of data jobs are out there. So I wish I had attended something like this that would explain to me what a data analyst does and how is that different from a data scientist, how is that different from a data engineer, how is that different from a user researcher? Because what I thought at the time is that user research is the kind of the field that brings all of that insight. So I limited myself a little bit in that type of job search. So after like 3-4 months, I couldn't really find any suitable roles for me at the time. So I fell back into my other skill, which is software engineering. So I started applying for software engineering roles, and that's when I got my first job in the industry. Not in the games industry, but in the industry in general. I started working as a software engineer at a company that builds submarines in BC called International Submarine Engineering. And yeah, my role was basically, I was involved in different parts of different projects that build different parts of the submarine, but most of my time there was spent on developing the user interface that the pilots use to operate the submarine. So that's what I found really interesting. And I found myself really, really gravitating towards understanding how the pilots use that interface, what kind of data we can collect on it, and how we can use that insight to improve the experience of the pilots, and how we can use that insight to improve, what kind of data-informed decisions we can take from that. So, and the company that I worked for was very small. They didn't really have dedicated roles for that. So that made me, try to look for the opportunity elsewhere. And that was like a year into my job. So I started looking for other types of opportunities that would, satisfy that itch that I had for data and for analytics and insights. And that's when I applied for a data analyst role at Phoenix Labs. So I got into Phoenix Labs, and that's where I am right now. Yeah, happy to be here and answer any questions. So yeah.
It is quite a journey. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, as you can see, each of our speakers really have their own journey to the role right now. And really, like, 3 big speakers today, and each of you are in different industry. I know, like, Yasmin is in gaming, Shiner is in digital security, and Anton, you work for Microsoft, which provides a lot of technology services and products. So maybe, like, each of you can kind of like talk about your responsibilities expected from you as a data analyst at work. Let's go with Yasmin first.
Sure. Yeah, happy to talk about it. So the role of the data analyst is really to help provide stakeholders with data that would help them create data-informed decisions. So those types of stakeholders can be different based on the product and based on the industry that you're at. In my role, for example, the types of stakeholders that I work with are game designers, product managers, sometimes UX designers, and sometimes even engineers. So in my role, what I'm expected to do is to help out my stakeholders form hypotheses and help them ask better questions that would be measurable by actual metrics. So after we identify that, my role afterwards would be to go and collect that data, collaborate with different types of stakeholders to get that data from telemetry, to transform it, to aggregate it, build data models with it, and then eventually tell a story with that data. So that would be telling a story based on the original question that the stakeholder has asked. And then to communicate what can we do next with that data and try to help them take that data-informed action. So if I would give like an example here, something that I would frequently work with would be working with game designers, try to balance Dauntless, the game that I work on. So an example would be something like a game designer would come up to me and be like, so we want to know what is the best performing weapon in the game. What gear do players equip to play the game? And so best performing weapon has like so many different meanings. Do you mean like best performing in terms of like highest damage? Do you mean like best performing in terms of most equipped? Is it, least amount of damage that the player can take? So it's so many different things. So I would have that discussion with the stakeholders, try to really understand why they're asking this question and how is this going to be helping them take decisions into improving what's, the problem space that they're working on. And then from there, I would be building data models that would help answer that question and build, the visualizations that is needed, and then tell a story with it and try to deliver the best insight for them to move forward. So I hope that answers.
Thank you, Yasmin. It's a really cool job that you are working there. So let's go with Anton first, second. Yeah, Anton, go ahead.
Cool. Yeah, I will totally agree with Yasmin on that. And if I were to summarize in one sentence, what's expectation, what's expected from data analyst, or what's the responsibilities, I would say keeping stakeholders happy. That's it. That's period. Like whether or not it's written on a job description, this is what you do. And even though like most likely it's not written on your job description, but this is what like your management cares about, to keep your stakeholders happy. And we don't usually, like as data analysts, we don't work in silos. We partner with business people, and it can be marketing team, finance team, it can be product team, most likely, right? So it can be individuals, like it can be CEO or CFO if you're smaller organization. And so all these guys, we call them stakeholders or customers or internal clients. Essentially, same thing for the name of stakeholder. As long as they're happy, you're doing a great job. That period. And so one thing I wanted to elaborate on it. I had one like really great question on my job interview at Microsoft, and I really like it. And question was, how do I explain the difference between mean and median to a 6-year-old? I believe this is kind of emphasize what we do. Not only we need to know which summary statistic central tendency to use in what situation, but also ability to translate it to the human language, to communicate it to stakeholder. And usually it sounds like you're talking to 6-year-old, like no offense if there are some PMs among us, but yeah, yeah, that's my answer. Yeah, keeping stakeholder happy, whatever it takes.
Yeah, totally agree. Seems like we please our stakeholders, but also like making sure that they understand the data and they can apply that all the insights to make decisions. Okay, exactly. Shiner, how about you?
Yes, both Yasmin and Anton have already brought up like very good points about what a data analyst entails. So I will probably just talk a little bit about like what I kind of like, what my responsibilities are in a more technical setting, I guess. So just a little bit of background about what the NuData does. NuData, we have the capability to mitigate account takeovers, account fraud, and credit card testing fraud, just to name a few. So for example, if a user is if someone is like trying to use a lot of like usernames and passwords on a website, like say Airbnb, for instance, attempt to find like matching combinations and then store them, it's basically stealing credentials. The solutions we provide at NuData would be able to stop those kind of behavior. So in terms of the role I play in this process, I am responsible for monitoring the emerging attack traffic on our client side and creating strategies to mitigate those undesirable behavior. And this is done through recognizing attack patterns and write up the necessary logic that captures the pattern. And then we usually do a reporting of the statistics to the relevant stakeholders. So much to what Anton was saying, keeping the stakeholders happy. And in order for me to do what I do on a day-to-day basis, I need to work with data engineering to figure out where certain data lives. I work with data science to figure out whether or not if certain estimators are appropriate to use for this type of fraud analyses. And I work with the customer success team to work with them to figure out whether or not if we actually can fulfill the client's requirements on our side, and if not, what needs to be done. So there is a lot of dialogue on a day-to-day basis, not just the coding aspect side of things. It's a very human role. That's what I would describe a data analyst is. It's not just all technical stuff. You spend a lot of time actually just talking with people, trying to figure out the requirements. So yeah, that's my answer to that question.
Very great. I owned a Mastercard card, and so every time I use my card, I will always remember Shiner is behind protecting.
Thank you. You don't own a Visa, right?
No.
Okay, that's good.
Okay, so so after all our speakers sharing, I want to tell a myth. There's a myth that if you're not coding or doing analysis as an analyst, you're not productive. But it sounds like from your sharing, you're not doing just coding. So do you feel this way? And if you do feel this way, like how do you tackle it? Maybe let's go with Anton first.
Yeah, I totally don't feel this way. I think if you're not coding or crunching numbers, yeah, I had cases, like I had cases when stakeholder booked me for a 1 hour call or meeting in pre-COVID time. And like first 50 minutes, we're talking about like pets and kids and how they spend their weekend. And at the very like 5 minutes, where the last 5 minutes, oh, by the way, I need that dashboard and report. You probably can relate to things like that, right? So again, like keep whatever it means to keep your stakeholders happy, you just do it, even if it's talking about pets and kids and hikes.
Yeah, I think small talk really helps a lot. Yeah, because like it builds relationship, and if that relationship is like built up, then they trust you to like give them the numbers, trust the data, whatever you give them. Yeah.
Totally.
How about Yasmin?
Yeah, I think I struggled with that a lot because, given my very technical background in engineering, like for me, if I'm coding, that's like my Zen zone, this is like, I really enjoy programming, but at some point I'll be like, I've been programming for so long, I need some actual, human connection there. So that's where I think that data analytics really fits my, not my skills. I mean, it does fit my skills, but it also like fits really my personality, because I do need like my time coding, programming, and building data models, but I also need my time to like really see where that programming is going and how it is influencing the product and how it is helping my stakeholders take data informed decisions, and how is it making them more comfortable in taking riskier decisions than just going by gut feeling. Yeah, I don't like it is strongly a myth if you are only programming. I don't think that fits really under the data analyst role. It's probably some other type of role, data engineer or software engineer. And even data engineers and software engineers have to talk with a lot of people. So yeah, it's being in that kind of collaborative environment. You really have to talk with others. You really have to build those connections. Again, like adding to what Anton just mentioned, like if I don't have that connection with my stakeholder and I'm just like, here, take the data, there isn't that kind of level of trust that they can build, and then they can, you know, be comfortable coming up to me and being like, I doubt your data, please tell me more. Or could you explain more? They would be like, oh, that's the data. Okay, it's kind of dry, you know? So it's, yes, you have to do a lot of talking. You have to do a lot of discussions with your stakeholders and build those relationships with them. And that takes a lot of time. I would say about 50 or 60% of my time is spent doing that.
So Shiner, do you have anything to add?
Like pretty much what Yasmin and Anton already said already. It's definitely a myth. A lot of times, like for me personally, each day I have probably at least 2 or 3 meetings every day, like both external and internal, just purely just you know, building that human to human connection through, you know, discussions and whatnot, like, you know, small talk. But it really helps in building a concrete working relationship, whether it's with your colleagues or with your clients. So that's it does take a good chunk of my time. Like Yasmin says, probably about like 50 to 60% of our time is just, you know, engaging with people, and the rest of the time we are, you know, actually sitting down writing like code, like SQL or you know, Python or whatever tech stack you use. But even then, you know, you still have to discuss with your colleagues when you're writing something, because you might not know where to find certain things. You have to like engage with them to say, hey, where can I find certain resources? So communication is definitely a core component of a data analyst.
I totally agree with you all. So let's kill that myth right now, right here. If you're not coding, don't feel bad, because 50-60% of your time, you do something else. That means like communicating with stakeholders, understanding their needs, building the trust, and yeah, communicating back the result to make better service and products. That is the end of our section 1. Now let's go into the Q&A. Celine has sent me a list of questions here. So the first question is, as a junior data scientist, do I need to know any front-end development or anything like that? Does anyone want to take that question? You can just unmute yourself and answer.
I believe you can take this question. You're a data scientist, no? Huh?
Yeah, so I can take this a little bit. Okay, so at Shopify, we divide data scientists into 2 different paths. So the path of kind of like analytics, like helping stakeholders to make decisions. And for that path, I don't need to know too much development and like knowledge. Like sometimes I use like custom JavaScript, CSS, something like that to like make my dashboard better, but that is the end of it. Anything else I will poke the engineer to help me with. But there is another path of data scientist role at Shopify where they focus more on machine learning, putting machine learning into production. So that role will require a stronger development background. So yeah, I think it really depending on the job. And really, if you want to apply for any job, data scientist, make sure you read the description to understand the expectation. Yeah.
Yeah, I can totally agree with it. And nowadays there are lots of tools coming out to help data analysts and scientists. So even though you may not, like some of the software development practices are being used, for example, version control. So you kind of nowadays expected to know how Git works and how to version control, how to merge your branches once you work in the team environment. Yeah, and it depends on the tech stack, it depends on many things. A project works differently. Many teams can have different every team can have their own kind of rules, how you do. But usually, so like a question was whether or not data scientist needs to know software development, right? Or was it about like specific framework?
Front-end development.
Front-end development. Oh, maybe my answer was wrong. So front-end development, so it's HTML, CSS pretty much, or maybe like Vue, Node.js, all those frameworks. Probably not. Maybe if you're working with product, if the product you're working with is something, a web app, maybe you do. But yeah, I never been data scientist, so probably not my call.
I can answer for a data analyst, if that is the question, because prior to my job as a data analyst, I was actually, when I mentioned I was a software engineer, most of my time was spent doing front-end development for the control interface for the submarine pilots. So I can say with confidence that is not related to what I do. So what is really related is just the critical thinking and the problem solving that you gain from programming in general. But just like having that knowledge in like, HTML and CSS. And at that time, I was actually using C++ and QML. So I haven't seen that being used. And even though like, I'm assuming you're asking because of like visualization, for those kind of things, you would need to know some, depending on really on the tool that you're using. If you're using, for example, some kind of a Python library, then yes, you do need to know that kind of software development tool. But for instance, at Phoenix Labs, we have different tools that we use, and they don't really require much programming. It's mostly like drag and drop tools. It's a visualization tool that is all ready for you. And if you're using something like, for instance, Tableau, there is a little bit of programming in there, but it's not really for visualization. It's more for data extraction using SQL and whatnot. So that I think that's my experience with it.
Yeah, just to add what's already been said here. So like the front end aspect side of things, I'm just assuming the question is about making things look pretty, like whether or not that's required as a data scientist or a data analyst. And to that, I would say, regardless of the role, data scientist or data analyst, it would be in your best interest to be able to build something pretty that looks pretty, because it's always easier to explain something through a visual than just like a spreadsheet of numbers. So in terms of whether or not it would be beneficial for you as a skill to have, I would say yes, but probably not like hardcore front-end development like CSS, like hardcore coding aspect side of things. It's more about building good visuals for other people to see so they can understand your work.
So the main point is that it's not a hard requirement to be in this role, but if you do have that, it's nice to have. And still the key message is to make sure that your stakeholders understand your work. Cool. So the next question, okay, I love this one. Okay, oftentimes job recruiters look for professional experience from job candidates. What would you recommend for people who are looking to advance in the field but need to build experience?
I can start. I think I'm assuming this particular individual has just say no experience. Let's just assume that. If that's the case, it would often be the candidate's interest to have like a GitHub repo that they're actively working on, like whatever project they're passionate about. So that way, one, you can, you're working on something that you're interested in, and at the same time, it is in the public domain that you can share to your potential employer to really demonstrate that you are, you have the passion for this particular area and you have the skills for it. So that's one thing. And also from an application standpoint, I would also be more personable, I guess, in your approach when writing a cover letter, because resumes are like resumes. They're like a summary of your experiences. So that's very good for like career professionals. But if you're just starting off, cover letter would help you a long way in the sense that you're able to communicate why you're passionate about what you want to do, as well as why you're picking this particular company that you're applying to. So yeah, that's my comment on that.
Very nice. Yasmin or Anton, you wanna add anything?
I can follow up. I agree with most of what Shiner mentioned. Basically, have a portfolio for yourself. Show what projects you worked on, whether it's in an academic capacity or just as a side project, just to build up your portfolio. And explain exactly what you did in those types of projects, and not just, describe it, in very like brief highlights. Actually go into what was your role and what you did in that project and how did you implement it. So that would give the recruiter a much better idea of what your experience is.
Just want to quickly add, make sure you have a very good README page on your GitHub, because sometimes people have their own personal GitHub repo and they don't really maintain it very well. And then they just share it, and it becomes very hard for other people to understand when they go into it. So make sure you have that set up properly.
Anton, you want to add anything?
No, honestly, it's everything covered. And I can totally relate how hard is it when you don't have experience, but you need to have experience to get a job, but you don't get a job because you don't have it. It's kind of vicious circle, right? So you kind of need to break it. So some people suggest to do some, to go and do like projects like you guys said. Some people recommend going for nonprofit organizations and helping pro bono, so to work actually, but not getting paid. It could be another way, but yeah, essentially to get your exposure somewhere.
Yeah, for sure. So to really summarize the answer so far, I think like firstly, if you don't have a chance to do any internships or co-op while you're in school, you can try to do a bunch of projects, put that into your resume. Your resume is like telling the story about yourself, how you're passionate about this field, why you're passionate about the company. Also maintain your GitHub profile, and yeah, and volunteer. Yes, I think volunteer and like anything, just try all the opportunities out there. Okay, so there are a few questions about skills and tools, but I think we will cover them in our section 2.